And what do a lot of parents do go over over Thanksgiving? What do they go do?
They still go
No.
to work.
Okay, Nora?
They look for turkeys.
Yeah, but they also hunt for something else. Lincoln, what do they hunt for? Maybe your parents don't do that.
They hunt for food.
But an animal hunts for food, and sometimes it goes against the car and wrecks your car. A deer, you're
I
right.
have a deer book.
Okay, so please put that down though. Please put that down because you're going to listen to my book, okay? Well, a deer. And especially a certain one for Santa. What does Santa have? What kind of deer, Charlotte?
Reindeer.
A reindeer. Right. And there's a special reindeer who kind of lights the way.
Rudolph.
Rudolph. Well, when I was looking for some books, girls, did you know that the real story of Rudolph the reindeer was actually written as a poem by Robert May. And you know what year it was? 1939. 80 years ago. That was a long time ago before Mrs. Bealey was even born and Miss Sandy was born. So a long, long time ago, this man wrote a poem. Well, you've heard of penny stores. You've heard of Macy's stores if you go to Milwaukee Way, or if you heard of Boston store that closed, a department store that has all kinds of stuff that you can buy. Well, there was a store called Montgomery Ward, and Robert May, worked for Montgomery Ward. And what they would do at Christmas time, they would give away coloring books. And so in the 1930s, they gave away coloring books. But the company said, you know, these are too expensive to give out to the boys and girls because they had the name of Montgomery Ward on it. So he asked Mr. May, who worked in the advertising department, to try and promote the company. He asked him to write a children's story because guess what he liked to do? He liked to write stories for children. So he thought, well, what can I write about? He had a daughter named Barbara. She was 4 years old. And guess what she liked? Deer. And he loved taking her to the zoo in Chicago to see the deer all the time. So I thought, I think I'll write a poem story about a deer. But I don't know what to call him. Should I call him Rollo? Should I call him Reginald? Should I call him Romeo? Or should I call him Rodney? But guess what name he picked? What did he pick? Rudolph. So he had a deer. And so what he did was he took a friend from the art department and they went to the Chicago Zoo and they were looking at the deer. And that man Denver Gillis, he started drawing pictures of the deer. And they brought him back, and then he read over the story that Mr. May wrote, which was a poem story, and Mr. Gillis came up with the book, with the cartoons for the book. So, in 1939, guess what they handed out? The story of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Well, now, it's 80 years old, but when it was 75 years old, they made a new copy of the book, and this is what the book looked like. Now, the pages are not white. What color are they? Cream. So I'm going to take the cover off, and I'm going to read the book. And when I read the book, I'll have to read it first, and then I'll show you, okay? But here is the pictures now that go with our story. Now, when I read it and show you the pictures, you'll also notice there are words that are underlined. I have no idea why the words are underlined. I was looking all over on the internet and I couldn't find it. So, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by Robert L. May, written for Montgomery Ward's department store. 'Twas the day before Christmas and all through the hills the reindeer were playing, enjoying the spills. of skating and coasting and climbing the willows and hopscotch and leapfrog protected by pillows, while ever so often they stopped to call names at one little deer not allowed in their games. Ha ha! Look at Rudolph! His nose is a sight. It's red as a beet, twice as big, twice as bright. Well, Rudolph just wept. What else could he do? He knew that the things we're saying, they were true. Look at this.
And he's crying.
Yeah, well, everybody's picking on him because he's got a big red nose. Where most reindeers' noses are brownish and tiny, poor Rudolph's was red, very large, and quite shiny. In daylight it sparkled. The picture shows that at nighttime it glowed like the eyes of a cat. And putting dirt on it just made it look muddy. Oh boy, was he mad when they nicknamed him Ruddy. Although he was lonesome, he was always good, obeying his parents as a good reindeer should. That's why on this day, Rudolph almost felt playful. He hoped that from Santa, soon, who would be driving his sleigh of presents and candy and doilies, dollies and toys for good little animal, good girls and boys. He'd get such as much, and this is what pleased him, as a happier, handsome reindeer who teased him. So as night in a fog hid the world like a hood, he went to bed helpful. He knew he had been good. So he thinks he's going to get presents too. Now, do you think Santa's going to come to a reindeer's house? Well, way up north on the same foggy night, you know what fog looks like, right? When you can't see as you're in the car. Old Santa was packing his sleigh for his flight. This fog, he complained, will be hard to get through. He shook his round head, and his tummy shook too. Without any stars or a moon as a compass, this extra dark night is quite likely to swamp us. To keep from colliding, we'll have to fly low. To keep our directions, we'll have to fly low. We'll steer by street lamps and houses tonight in order to finish before it's light. Just think of the boys and girls' faith would be shaken if we didn't reach them before they'd awaken. So what's the problem? Santa's got his sleigh packed, but what's the weather outside? Brielle?
Foggy.
It's fogging. Can he see? So what are they going to have to do so they know where they're going? What are they going to have to use, Lincoln?
Rudolph.
Yeah, but what else? No, we don't have Rudolph yet. What is he going to have to use? Where is he going to get the light from? The street lights in the cities. So here, look at, they're packing the sleigh.
That's a mess.
Now these are not what we're used to seeing in our books, are we? Are they? Nope. Okay.
More colorful.
Come Dasher, come Dancer, come Prancer and Vixen, come Cupid, come Comet, come Donner and Blitzen. Be quick with your suppers, get hitched in a hurry. You too will find fog a delay and a worry. And Santa was right, as he usually is. The fog was as thick as a soda's white fizz. Not just getting lost needed all Santa's skill. With street signs and numbers, they still were difficult still. He tangled in treetops again and again and barely missed hitting a tri-motored plane. So he told the reindeer, hurry up and eat so we can get going because it's so foggy out. He still made good speed with much twisting and turning, as long as the street lamps and house lights were burning. At each house, first noting the people who lives there, he'd quickly select the right presents to give there. By midnight, however, the last light had fled, for even big people they have gone to bed. Because it might wake them, a match was denied him. Oh my, how he wished for just one star to guide them. Through dark streets and houses, old Santa fared poorly. He now picked the presents more slowly, less surely. He really was worried, for what would he do if folks started waking before he was through? Now he's getting worried. There's no light at all. What is he going to do? He missed the plane. Wow. The air was still foggy, the night dark and drear, when Santa arrived at the home of a deer. A ledge he tripped on while seeking the chimney gave Santa a spill and painfully skinned his knee. The room he came down in was blacker than ink. He went for a chair, and then he found it was a sink. The first reindeer bedroom was so very black, he tripped on the rug and fell flat on his back. So dark he had to move close to the bed and squinted very hard at a sleeping deer's head. Before he could choose the right kind of a toy, a doll for a girl, or a train for a boy. Now, is he at a boy and girl's house? No, he's at the house of deer. Now, what do you give deer for gifts?
Okay.
I don't know. But all this took time and filled Santa with gloom, while slowly he groped toward the next reindeer's room. The door he just opened when, to his surprise, a dim but quite definite light met his eyes. The lamp wasn't burning. The glow came instead from something that lay at the head of the bed. And there lay. But wait now, what would you suppose? The glowing, you've guessed, was Rudolph's red nose. So this room was easy. This one little light let Santa pick quickly the gifts that were just right. How happy he was till he went out the door. The rest of the house was what color? Black as before. So black that it made that every step a dark mystery. And then came the greatest idea in history. What do you think the greatest idea was?
He would invite Rudolph to join his sleigh so they could see.
Let's see if you're right. He went back to Rudolph and started to shake him, of course very gently, in order to wake him. And Rudolph could scarcely believe his own eyes. You just can imagine his joy and his surprise at seeing who stood there so real and so near while telling the tale we've already told here. Poor Santa's sad tale of distress and delay, the fog and the darkness and losing the way, the horrible fear that some children might waken before his complete Christmas trip had been taken. And you, he told Rudolph, may yet save our day. Your wonderful forehead may pave just the way for a wonderful triumph that actually might. Old Santa, you notice, was extra polite to Rudolph regarding his wonderful forehead. To call it a big shiny nose would sound horrid. I need you, said Santa, to help me tonight to lead on my deer and the rest of our flight. And Rudolph broke out into such a big grin, it almost connected his ears to his chin. A note for the folks, he dashed off in a hurry. I've gone to help Santa, he wrote. Do not worry, said Santa. My sleigh I'll bring down to the lawn. You stick in the chimney, and flash, he was gone. So Rudolph pranced out through the door very gay and took his proud place at the head of the sleigh. So that's how he got in front of a sleigh. He wasn't originally supposed to be one of the reindeer going with Santa.
What?
The rest of the night, well, what do you guess? Old Santa's idea was a brilliant success, and brilliant was almost no word for the way that Rudolph directed the deer in the sleigh. In spite of the fog, they flew quickly and low and made such good use of that wonderful glow from Rudolph's forehead at each intersection that not even once did they lose their direction. So did they lose their way? No. While as for the houses and streets with a sign on them, they merely flew close so that Rudolph could shine on them. To tell who lived where and just what to give whom, they'd fly by each window and peek in the room. Old Santa knew always which children were good and minded their parents and ate as they should. You think vegetables? Who knows? So Santa selected the gift that was right, while Rudolph's forehead gave just enough light. It all went so fast that before it was day, the very last present was given away. The very last stocking was filled to the top, just as the sun was starting to pop.
The sun?
Well, the sun came out because it was morning, and they finally had all the presents delivered, Brielle. So they didn't have to worry. The sun woke the reindeer in Rudolph's hometown. They found the short message that he had written down. They gathered outside to await his return, and were they astonished to learn that Rudolph, that ugliest dear of them all, Rudolph the red-nosed, bashful and small, the funny-faced fellow they always called names and practically never allowed in their games, was now to be envied by all far and near. For no greater honor came to a deer than riding with Santa and guiding his sleigh, the number one job on the number one day. So this little reindeer was always picked on, but he got the best job of all, didn't he? To guide the sleigh. Let's see what happens. The sleigh and the reindeer then came into view, and Rudolph still led them as downward they flew. Oh boy, was he proud as they came to a landing, right where his handsomer playmates were standing. These bad deer who used to do nothing but tease him would now have done anything only to please him. They felt even sorrier than that they had been bad when Santa said, Rudolph, I had never have had a deer quite so brave or so brilliant as you at fighting black fog and at guiding me through. But you, last night's journey was actually boss. Without you, I'm certain we'd all have been lost. I hope you'll continue to keep us from grief on future dark trips as our now Commander-in-Chief. But Rudolph just blushed from his hat to his toes until his whole fur was as red as his nose. The crowd first applauded, then started to screech, hooray for our Rudolph, and we want a speech. But Rudolph was bashful, despite being the hero, and he was tired. His sleep on the trip totaled 0. So that's why his speech was just brief and not bright. You know what he said? Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. And that's why, whenever it's foggy and gray, it's Rudolph the Red-Nosed who guides Santa's sleigh. By listening this Christmas, don't make a peep, because at late at night, children should be at sleep. The very first sound that you'll hear in the roof, provided there's fog, will be Rudolph's small hoof. And soon after that, if you're still as a mouse, you may hear a swish as he flies around the house and gives enough light to give Santa a view of you and your room. And when they're all through, you may hear them call as they drive out of sight. What would they say? Merry Christmas. Say it with me. Merry Christmas to all, and all a good night. So here he is. His fur was even red. He was so bashful.
That looks like a girl reindeer now.
Well, and here, all the reindeer now who were picking on him, now we're all cheering him on. Yes, that's what they were doing, Sawyer. And then here's where they're all leaving, and then it said, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Now, when the war came, World War II, they were short on paper. So the department store couldn't give this away. So when it came to 1947, they started publishing this again, and they were handing it out to the boys and girls at the Montgomery Ward department store. Now, Robert May had a brother-in-law, and he liked to write songs. Guess what song he wrote? Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the song you hear all the time. His brother-in-law wrote that song. And afterwards, guess what? There was a movie on Rudolph. How many of you watched the movie Rudolph? Okay. How many of you listened to the song? Now, I found a couple more books at the bookstore. Now, this is the one that he wrote, and this is what it looked like when they handed it out. Thank you, Liam. This is what it looked like. But now if you go to the store, you might find this one. And this says it's the original story. It's got a little, and here it is. But tell me what's different about this book.
It has different colors.
Different colors, what else?
Different pictures.
Different type of pictures. Let's see. Look at this. Look at how they do the reindeers now. Isn't that pretty? But this was the very first one. Now, I found some other things that Rudolph did. Rudolph Shines Again. Look at this one. And it's also by Robert May. And you might find it when you see the sticker that it said it's the original. Look at this one. His story from long ago, they now put with current pictures too. And this is all about rabbits.
Cool.
And then I found another one. This is talking about a circus that was supposed to come during Christmas and couldn't come. Look at this one. This one's called Rudolph to the Rescue. And look at the Christmas ornament on his head. This one's talking about all the animals. And so the circus left, but all his...
Good afternoon, everybody. We are at the end of Reindeer Hideout Day. Hopefully you got lots of reading done, and we'll continue to read this weekend. We will see you, hopefully, at church on Sunday morning, and then again, Monday morning back at school. Have a great weekend.
So all the animals in the woods got together to help this city put on a circus with the help of Rudolph. So there are many different stories of Rudolph, but you have to look for the little stickers that it was based on the true stories that Robert May wrote. So when you see it on TV, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Mr. May originally wrote a poem and then it became a story. Yes.
I have the movie.
You have the movie. Neat. Tilly?
I have a book. Is Rudolph real?
No, he wasn't. But he and his art friend went to the zoo in the Lincoln Zoo in Chicago, so he could draw pictures of the reindeer and then use in the first book, the original book.
And then
He wrote it's a fake story he wrote for his daughter Barbara, and she liked it so well. He thought, well, if his daughter likes it, then guess what? Other boys and girls will like it too. So he took it to his people at Montgomery Ward, and they said, right thing to do. Let's make that the storybook that we're going to give away every Christmas.